Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review John Lewis' Good Trouble. And this documentary from Dawn Porter tells the story of Representative John Porter, not John Porter, John Lewis, getting people's names mixed up. John Lewis, who for a long time has been the center of civil rights movement for politics and has been part of Congress for a very long time. And this film does things very well, and it does things not very well. And overall, it's a fine documentary. I've seen plenty of documentaries this year that really were great, and this doesn't quite reach there because of a couple reasons. But to start with, I do really like the fact that this does capture and portray the movement that he was a part of, the civil rights movement, because he was at the heart of it, and what he's accomplished in terms of civil rights. And you really get a sense of how influential he is, the people that talk about what he did to influence them and the lasting impact they had on him, he had on them. And there's some scenes, and there's one particular one where Cory Booker's talking about how it's like if you walk around with John Lewis, crowds of people will show up and just want to talk to the man. And that's inspirational. That's having sway over people. And it definitely shows all of the very impactful things he's done in his career. The way the story is told is a little shaky because it doesn't really have a whole lot of rhyme or reason. It bounces around a lot in terms of the story it's telling. And sometimes you're just like, where's the momentum going here? It kind of goes in circles. And like if it focused on like different aspects of his life, maybe, but it really doesn't because it just keeps circling back around to the same thing. And it kind of glosses over a lot of what he did as a politician, and it's similar to the Pavarotti documentary that Ron Howard made, where it's very sterile and sanitized. It glosses over basically anything that he did wrong, and he just kind of feels like it's this person who's perfect, and people aren't. And I feel like that's tough sell for a documentary where it's just like, we're just going to show all the positive things. Like the one moment that it got relatively interesting was it talked about how he first became a politician and screwed over his lifelong friend who he was friends with for years. Yet they kind of gloss over that and don't really dig into that relationship or show a whole lot of sense of regret on his end. And it's like, that's interesting. That's complexity. That's dynamic shaping of a character. But they just kind of like, nope, we're not going to talk about that because it paints him in a bad picture. And I think the David Crosby documentary that came out within the past couple years kind of set the tone for documentaries that are there who really show the real story. And him himself, he was not somebody who, in his documentary, shied away from talking about the complexity of the good, the bad, and the ugly of his life. And this documentary kind of glosses over a lot of that. And it talks a lot, like it really focuses on, like, he talks about being arrested so many times. And it's just, right off the bat, it's like, this is a good light. And doesn't talk about the potential issues or the complexities of that's tough, that's interesting, but it kind of glosses over it at the beginning of the film and just says, look at this, good trouble. And it's just like, you could have had some more depth to this documentary, but what its main focus of talking about the civil rights movement and how it's still relevant today, which it is, I feel like this documentary does a good job about that. And in general, this is a very influential, very impactful man. And the documentary at least shows that and is able to accomplish that. And in general, it's a fine documentary. And it's like if you want to learn more about this politician who made such a big impact, it's there. And it shows the impact that he made. Is it as interesting as it could have been from a character perspective of painting him as a more well-rounded person? Not really. It could have improved in that area. But in general, this was a fine documentary. But those are my thoughts on John Lewis' Good Trouble. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.